Field by field, Maizex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Maizex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit maizex.com to find your local Maizex representative.
All right, joining me now to talk about a very exciting new project happening on the prairies, I've got Dr. Luke Struckman and Sean Catherwood joining me. Luke, there is a new course, we'll call it, available for CCAs, for those who are advising farmers. And it's a bit different than we're kind of used to. Tell us all about what was announced this week through the Sustainable Food Lab.
Yeah, so this particular project, it focuses on training crop advisors in the implementation of soil health practices with their farmer clients. And so the course itself consists of 10 weeks of training, plus it's also working to build a community of practice amongst crop advisors. And so the idea is that in addition to the training, there's also weekly Zoom meetings during the course. And once the course finishes, there is a Slack server that will be made available to each cohort of the project. And they can use this as a way to continue communicating with each other.
Okay, so very much sort of a learning experience, but with a way to stay in touch and continue learning together even after the project is complete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by community of practice.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Now, so Sean, you're the lead agronomist for Southern Saskatchewan on this project. What kinds of things might agronomists learn or have to dig into in the course of this project?
Yeah, I think a big part of being lead agronomist is kind of focusing on your region, your geography, and being able to provide, especially from my point of view, very practical knowledge and hands-on knowledge of what I'm actually doing and seeing in the field. So a big part of some of the content actually is going to be photography, videography, and all that kind of stuff from the field, which all lead agronomists will be doing the same, but it'll be kind of interesting to see the differences between the regions, Manitoba, North Sask, South Sask, because the climate is very different. Soils are very different. Cropping systems are very different. And so for Southern Saskatchewan context, I'll be providing content anywhere from cropping systems that work in this area that kind of play into the soil health principles to very specific practices from kind of soil health perspective to biologicals, fertility management, cover cropping, and even looking at like the practicality of how all this can work logistically on a farm with existing equipment that is in the marketplace, but also maybe some other equipment that farmers can utilize to make some changes on their farm. So from my perspective, it'll be very practical, almost how-to type information, I would say, which is, I think, a big reason why I was brought on with my experience on that kind of stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, Luke, this is also, so it's an interesting kind of way of putting something like this together. So when we should say this is the Canada TAP, so that's the Trusted Advisor Partnership is what it's actually called. There is an affiliation here with Assiniboine College and of course industry support as well for this going forward. So will this be completely online? Is there classroom and get together aspects of this, or is this completely sort of choose your own adventure? How's it going to work?
Yeah, the majority is online based just because of distance and cost. That's really the only practical way we can do this across two provinces. That being said, we will have some meetups occasionally that will allow for the different cohorts to interact in person.
Okay. Now, Sean, you're having a big part of actually putting together the content that agronomists are going to be learning from and those sorts of things. What for you has been perhaps the most challenging part of trying to work into the curriculum here? You're gearing up for 2025 to roll this out. So what has been sort of the crunch time this growing season to get ready for this?
Yeah, well, I actually just kind of came on board literally within the last month, so just kind of getting started on this stuff. But I think my answer with that would be in this specific area, the drought situation that we're in, and trying to capture good content for that can be kind of depressing at times if it's dry and everything looks a little bit crappy. And so that's definitely a challenge. But again, that's also a learning opportunity to really fold that into the whole package of kind of holistic management on a farm. How do you deal with the dry cycles? How do you deal with the wet cycles? And everything Mother Nature throws at us is a learning opportunity and something that we can learn together on in this kind of process through TAP. So, which is exciting, really.
Absolutely. And let's face it, as you've laid it out, Manitoba, northern Saskatchewan, southern Saskatchewan, excessive water some years, certainly in northern Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Drought, though, has been an issue in the past few years, and sometimes extremely so. So this is part of what farmers have to face and what agronomists have to be certainly advising on. So nothing like trial by fire. Let's put it that way. Now, so Luke, I did mention this is to roll out 2025. You're looking for, that original cohort of how many people and who, I guess, who would be interested or who would this sort of work for as far as who might be interested in joining this program?
Yeah, primarily we're looking for independent and retail agronomists in this first cohort. It will be open to kind of a wider set of agronomists and crop advisors later on, but this kind of initial cohort is, again, retail and independent agronomists that work directly with farmers and giving them crop advice.
Okay, and Sean, you did mention that you're lead agronomist for southern Saskatchewan. So will there be two other agronomists that will be part of this project as well for the Manitoba and northern Saskatchewan?
Yep. Yeah, that's the plan. So right now there's a lady based out of Melfort who's covering northern Saskatchewan, and then we're currently looking for a Manitoba agronomist to cover that area.
Okay. Sean, from your perspective, why do you think a course like this is important? Why do you think it's needed?
Yeah, I think I was first introduced to this idea when I was with PepsiCo, and I was really fascinated by it right from the get-go because of kind of two factors here. Number one, just the need for more knowledge transfer as it relates to soil health principles in modern day agronomy. I think that's lacking a little bit at some of the bigger schools, that is changing with time. But this was kind of a niche idea to really help drive some of these principles home with both young and older agronomists that maybe want to learn more about it. But then also on the second factor really is the amount of impact this could have, because when you kind of stream this information through independent advisors and agronomists, they have a huge influence on what takes place on their farms. When I say their farms, I mean their clients' farms. And in this day and age, a lot of farms, from small to big, really rely heavily on their agronomists to be able to provide proper and timely advice. And being able to drive some of these principles streaming through those advisors really could have a huge impact on adoption across thousands and thousands of acres in the prairies here. So yeah, just the approach in general is a very impactful approach, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, Luke, from your perspective in being co-lead on this project, why do you think it's important?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest reasons why I see this project as important is that it helps to de-risk the adoption of soil health practices. So some of these practices, can be quite risky to adopt, and you really need that technical advice over a long term to make them actually work on the farm. And so, if you have an advisor that's been trained in soil health practices, that has a community of practice that they can rely upon, that does help to take some of the risk out of adopting new practices.
Mm-hmm. Lessons are expensive when you do them in the cropping year.
Yes.
We'll share that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly that. So, and Sean, to your point about accessing, advisors that obviously are, they could be helping farmers make decisions on thousands of acres in a year. So, that impact potentially is huge.
Mm-hmm. For sure it is, yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess maybe that's where we'll end it on this discussion. Although Luke, I'll ask you for more info, but Sean, what do you hope to see in a first cohort? How will you know you've been successful this first year going through this? What do you hope to see out of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, it's always it's the peer-to-peer side of it that's really important too. So I think engagement from the first cohort will be awesome, and finding those agronomists that are truly interested in this kind of practice or this field, I guess, of study, and people that are very curious and have a lot of curiosity and want to learn more and are willing to learn and have an open mind to be able to take that information and deploy it on their clients' farms. So I think what success would look like would be a very highly engaged group, ask a lot of questions, very collaborative, bouncing ideas off each other. And we're going to have a lot of very smart agronomists that are coming in through this that probably know a lot more than I do. And just being able to have these discussions with them in more of a peer-to-peer type situation to really learn from each other is what I could see being the most important part of all this, really. So, yeah.
Awesome. What is it? You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You don't learn
No.
anything if that's the case. Yeah, you bring in all the smart people with you. Okay, so Luke, for those listening potentially who are interested in either more information or perhaps joining this cohort, where can they go for more information?
Right now, they can go to the Sustainable Food Lab website to the press release. And we'll be coming out with a website here in the next few months where more information can be found.
Okay, so Sustainable Food Lab website. We'll send everybody there. All right, Luke, Sean, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
No problem. Thank you, Lindsay.